We are counting down the days to Cyara Exchange. It's happening in Dallas, Texas, April 28th and 29th. I am excited to be joining the team on site. And as we look ahead to what's planned, I am thrilled to be sitting down with Sushil Kumar, who's CEO at Cyara. Sushil, thank you so much for spending a bit of time with me today.
Thanks, Justin. It's great to talk to you. I'm glad to be here.
There's a lot that's going to be happening at this year's event, and there are some things that are on my mind as we think about what to expect at the conference, but also some things that I think would be really valuable for CX leaders as they navigate the current environment. I mean, there's pressure like never before. There's so much changing in terms of expectations and technical capability. I think there's a lot of ground that we can cover in a little bit of time. Here's where I want to start. Cyara's business is CX assurance. What do you see as the biggest shift that leaders are missing right now and how CX assurance needs to work for their business?
Yeah. So, Justin, great question. And you touched on a lot of topics that is often either missed or becomes a side step out of a conversation. So first of all, what is CX assurance? CX assurance it means knowing with certain degree of certainty, not hoping that every customer interaction works the way it is supposed to, before customers find it out, right? This is what, drives the success of your company, right? The product can be commoditized, technology gap, sometimes you have it, sometimes, that leadership narrows, but customer loyalty stays forever, right? So this is really the most important part. What is happening today, as you very well know, the contact centers are running on increasingly complex stack, right? We have CCaaS, we have IVR, and now we have conversational AI, right? So when something breaks, right, it's a complex interlinkages of things, which is not only hard to make sure that you can troubleshoot quickly, but even knowing what went wrong often is a challenge, right? So with CX assurance, we try to flip that. It's not like you put everything together and hope it works, right? You test, you monitor, you validate entire customer journey proactively across all the omni-channels, so that you can catch the issues faster before they impact the problems, right? So if you are a contact center leader responsible for experience and quality, right? This is a discipline that will keep you out of firefighting mode, that will make you from an operational leader to a strategic leader driving the business forward.
I think about my own time as a CX operations leader, and the environment is so complex, and you have all of these blind spots that are just they're a cost of doing CX right? As you mentioned, there's all these tools, and there's no way any one person can understand all of that. There's no way that it can be done and delivered on one system. And so you're right, we do need this tool that enables us to have a view of what's happening across the landscape and understanding it. So love that there are solutions like Cyara in the market, because it does give that visibility and pulse on what's happening, what's breaking, and where the vulnerabilities are. One of the things that I think is interesting about Cyara is how you're using artificial intelligence to bring this to life. What problems do you see AI native assurance solve that static testing isn't able to?
Yeah, so that's a great question again. And I would like to start by outset that we are applying AI in an area where it actually moves the needle, not as a wrapper, not as an assistant, not as a nice to have. As you know, there is a lot of, just like, it's not a fault of technology, but just like any other new technology, hype always overtakes the reality, right? But in the CX assurance space, the two things have happened. If there are two areas where you see AI making real impact, software development is one of them, and the CX assurance is other. But there is one notable difference. There is a human in the middle on the coding assistant side, right? So there is always a safety valve. In CX assurance, there is no such valve. And that is the role that we fill by making sure that we have a systemic, we have broad-based, and we have a reliable way to proactively validate if your technology is ready to go. Now, how do we do that? Well, first of all, AI-powered test generation, right? The static tests were good when the output was pretty static, right? You used to do waveform matching, word-by-word matching. But one of the biggest strengths of AI is that it can read sentiment, it can alter its response at the runtime, which is the goodness, right? It's not a problem. it does mean that your tests have to become more intelligent, to be more context driven, right? So one of the big things that we are working on is to augmenting our test creation capability with the AI embedded. It means that now you can embed AI step in otherwise a static test, but it also means that you can have a fully intent-based or objective-based test, right? Describe the intent and let AI figure out the next steps. It may sound scary like AI testing and AI, but it's truly in a way to find a good deterministic path forward between keeping some control at the same time taking advantage of dynamism that AI brings, right? So that's one area. The other area, the bane of existence in testing is what do you do with a failed test, right? Oftentimes people complain, it's not that I worry about the volume of test, it's all the noise that I have to look at, right? So, and oftentimes the tests were binary, passed or failed, right? Passed, great. Failed means anything could have happened. Your script could have been broken. Your infrastructure could have been broken. And most people will agree that 8 to 9 out of 10 failures are actually infrastructure failure rather than the real failures. While it bothers everyone, in the CX space, it becomes a bigger problem because people take this failure seriously. So one of the other areas where we're applying AI is the AI test run triage, right? So when you see a failure, let AI look at the logs, figure it out. Is it a infrastructure issue or is it a real issue? If it is a transient problem, rerun the test automatically, right? So that essentially elevates the value of AI significantly because your signal to noise ratio improves. And the third thing is AI driven insights, right? Which is, Cyara has this unique advantage of seeing the customer interaction both pre-prod as well as post-prod, right? And one of the value that we can bring is connecting the dot, which is people are not necessarily looking for to do more testing. They want better testing. And better testing means help me figure out the path that are most problematic and help them test better, right? So the key differentiator is the CRI is the only platform that combines the AI ability, right? And its ability to simulate the realistic customer journey because we see both sides of the fence, right? And
Yeah.
that gives you higher confidence that we can not only help you testing before production, but we are monitoring on your behalf even after the things go in prod. And we are using this continuous learning to make this self-optimizing cycle.
Yeah, and here's the important part about that. I don't like surprises, even good ones, let alone things that are the result of friction or frustration for my customers, for my employees. And there's a couple key moments that you called out there. One, before I ever take this thing, this capability into production, have I really pressure tested all of what might and could go wrong on that? Once it's live, am I able to understand and iterate quickly when things start to drift from what's intended? And then do I have the intelligence to understand what's actually at play here? Not just it broke, but here's how and why, and think about what to do next. So I love that. The other thing that I think is important about what you said is you're applying AI in practical, real terms. And I think this is a year where the evidence of AI's impact is going to be especially scrutinized. It's also the great part about events like Exchange because I can not only see this technology in practice, I get to hear from your actual customers who are using this, who are navigating. It's not right, it's not a demo in a well-practiced presentation. It's like this is real life stuff that I get to experience firsthand.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm curious, as organizations are bringing agentic and autonomous systems into their CX ecosystem, where do you see them misjudging the demands that those are placing on their technology and on their infrastructure?
I wouldn't say it's a misjudging, but it's like a reinforcement of the point that you made earlier, Justin, which is, the number one thing that I hear from customers is that everybody has an AI initiative going on, right? Either on the paper or in the reality. Some even have prototypes built in, right? The biggest stumbling block I see is that a lot of pilots sitting in the shelfware simply because, we are realizing one of the challenges of AI is that these systems have become so sophisticated that building a prototype or building an application, that time has gone from months to weeks, right? So now the question is, how do I validate? This was easy because it is so capable. But if it is so capable, how do I know that I have really vetted it, right? So the lot of effort in deploying AI is less in building the agent. It's more in terms of putting the guardrails and the confidence around, right? And that's what I see a lot of the CX leaders, right, struggling with, is that AI needs to be trustworthy, and it needs to be compliant, hallucination is the most obvious things, right? But even there are compliance, bias, fact check, and all that. AI is creative, A lot of people actually don't realize that what seems like such a creative entity and such an intelligent entity is nothing but a autocomplete on steroid transformer, right? So it's amazing what it's capable to do, but it can make mistakes. And having those guardrails around, having a compliance and governance framework is really the need of the hour. And here is another thing, right? And this is where I think companies like Cyara have a role to play. You want compliance to have an objective view, detached from the provider themselves, right? So we bring that neutral view across all the providers. It's a value add for customers because it's no longer tied to individual stack, but they can also count on a very objective view, right? Where there's no conflict of interest.
That is such an important point to underscore here. Uh, Look, I work with a lot of technology companies, and they are some smart, talented, trustworthy people. But even in my own personal life, it matters to have someone with a perspective to be able to see and to speak into that. We are making significant investments in our technology stacks. It is so valuable to have a agnostic look at what is working, what is not, to be able to address that. At the risk of maybe restating the obvious here, as organizations are bringing on AI in ways that it's taking on more responsibility and having more influence and impact in their operation, why do you see assurance becoming even more mission critical?
Yeah, I think for all the reasons that we talked about, right, which is just to restate that I think it's an obvious choice these days to deploy AI into your customer service operations for multiple reasons, right? People have had a lot of false start with the static bots and all that, right? But at the same time, I think our customers are becoming more demanding. They expect 24 by 7, and they expect, I'll give you my own example, right? I hate when I run into a problem. Most of the problems I run over the weekend or in the non working hours. And when I need help, my first thing is let me go and search and self serve. And when I say, oh, we are only open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time, it's something that drives me nuts, right? So clearly, I think this is a way to make your customer service even better and meet the customers where they are, right? The convergence of AI and voice is also a big one, right? Chatbots are good, voice is more natural, right? And for all, there are a lot of jokes around IVRs where, they don't understand frustration. The categories are never the same, right? So, the voice, which makes the things more dynamic, it allows the customer. What IVRs did was that it made, it tried to convert customers, a human being, into a computer to pick one of the binary choices, right? And it could never understand the shades of the gray, right? So I think AI is fixing all of that, right? Now we are finally, with the convergence of AI and voice, we're getting to a point where we can deliver higher quality of the customer service to the customer 24 by 7 a day at their pace, right? And in a human sounding way. This is all goodness, right? The question, of course, is what if it doesn't work? And how do you even know if it doesn't work? And taking a leap of faith, right, can be a hope. It is not a strategy. But plus, a lot of our customers operate in a very regulated industry, healthcare, banking, and all that. So the compliance is a real issue. Look, the risk was lower. It was never zero. It was lower when you have static. People could not do anything outside a certain defined boundaries,
Yeah.
right? Now they can. So with the greater power, the Spider-Man thing, with greater power comes greater responsibility. And we help contact center leaders armed with the tools, technology, and the governance framework to give them that, responsibility or confidence layer so that they can deploy things with confidence, right? They can take all the innovation, unlock, it with the added assurance and confidence that it has been properly vetted. And if some things do go wrong, they'll be the first one to know and they will have chance to correct it.
Sushil, I wanna play the adversary here for a minute. Some of your customers, I mean, they are the largest of large enterprises and they are smart, mature teams. What if somebody's watching this and they're saying, you know what, our current assurance framework that we've used, like it's good. It's working for us. What do you think is going to break for them if they're not planning to evolve how they're approaching assurance this year?
Well, first of all, I think again, if somebody really is in the state where they think they are, kudos to them. I think they must have done a great work. The reality, I think is that I think unless they have heard it directly from a customer, I think this is not the reality. It's maybe the whatever the measurement framework and everything that they may have, it may be telling them that. So I think this view that we can stay stagnant when the whole ecosystem around us is moving, right? People expect, a more flexible and humanly interfaces. They expect you to understand more of the history. Like, I'll give you an example. Nothing frustrates me more about, in fact, I have trepidation in calling customer service because the issues that I call are not the easiest one. That means they require several calls. And every time you get a new customer rep and they need to read all the history, sometimes they read it right, sometimes they read it wrong, sometimes they read it while you are on the phone waiting. And every successive interaction becomes more and more painful, right? AI is a tool to help you address that. If as a CX leader, you are not using that, I would say you are leaving something on the table, right? So to answer your question, Justin, if you have done a great job, kudos to you. You have a much stronger foundation to build on, but you must build on that. Otherwise, there is always a risk of you getting left behind.
So good. And just a reminder that we are in a state of constant change and like change management is hard. Or organizations of all sizes have struggled with that forever. We're in a moment where we have to lean into our ability to iterate, to fail fast, to understand and improve and evolve, maybe more than ever before. On that front, as you think about the year ahead of us, what do you see as a momentum or a milestone that will make 2026 a defining year for customer experience?
I think the mainly AI coming from the sideline to the forefront. I think this is the time where you'll see people talking less about why they should deploy AI, but more talking about the experiences and the lessons learned in terms of, deploying AI. It may sound self-serving, but the need, I think everybody's talking about the need for a trust and governance, but I think walk the talk is what you'll see happening here. This is a year where you'll see a needle moving significantly from pure excitement to the realism, right? And AI basically becoming more of the front leading part of the contact center rather than, an experimental sideshow, right?
Yeah. I want to have you speak directly to other executives and even boards right now. Why do you believe that CFOs and boards should prioritize CX assurance at this moment in time?
I think both for, there are multiple reasons, and I think good reasons are always that help you contain cost, but at the same time, grow your market share, right? This has potential of both, right? If you want to provide that comparable level of service that you can get with AI, you will need a lot more resources, right? Customer service is not an easy job. You deal with irate customers, frustrated customers, and all that, right? I think, if there is one good thing AI has, it is emotionally a little bit more tolerant, right? So I think it's, AI gives you a much more affordable, scalable way to go and elevate your customer experience several notches higher, right? And with that, and going back to the point, I said earlier, in this day and age, what truly drives differentiation and the business growth is the customer loyalty, right? This AI is a tool to help you, take the customer loyalty to the next level. Just imagine simple things. If every time I called and the service agent on the other side knew all my class 10 calls and could meet me there, hey, Sushil, looks like you are calling about this. Did the problem get resolved or not, right? Just impactful. Like, I would never like to leave that vendor ever, right? As opposed to saying, why are you calling? Describe the problem and all that, right? So it's a great way to help you scale and elevate the level of your customer engagement, but it's a great way to engage your customers and build long-term loyalties.
So good. Sushil, I have two more questions for you. First one is this. You've been part of a number of great organizations. You've seen all sorts of industry events play out. If I'm thinking about attending Exchange, what is your perspective on how it differs in purpose and intent from the traditional user conference?
A great question. So exchange is what we like to say. This is where practitioners comes to get real. Like this is not a vendor expo. I like to see more of his community of people who are actually running contact centers, making technology decision and solve hard problems, right? So what makes it different is that the conversation are grounded, they are real. We are not talking about painting a picture of 10 years from now. You will actually hear what is working, what is not working, and what is hype versus what is substance. So if you are a leader who is trying to figure out how to modernize your CX, how to figure out the blueprint to, adopt AI, not just whether you should adopt AI, it's you can't miss this event.
Like it. Here we go. Last thing. I'm going to have you finish this sentence. Exchange 2026 matters because it will mark the moment when what?
It will mark this because this is a conference where you should come with the problems that you're trying to solve, right? This is, yes, obviously, you will get to hear a lot about how AI transforming, how other customers are adopting it. But mostly the success of this event will be that this is the event where you will come to say, I hear that, but I have heard that in 10 other shows and all that. This is where my problem is. How can all these conversations translate to solutions for my use case, for my company, in my specific situation, right? This is what this conference will provide you. You will not only get to hear ideas, you'll definitely get to see how the realistic, near-term future is shaping, but you will actually get hands-on blueprint on how to, go back and start putting these in practice the very next day you come back.
There it is. This is just a sneak peek of the kinds of conversations that will be happening in Dallas, Texas, April 28th to 29th at Cyara Exchange. Sushil, so good to chat with you. I look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, Justin.